Hey, I was trying to adjust my hat before we started. Hey, everybody, welcome in Tuesday afternoon edition. Gorilla Sports Off Ice got a fun episode for you guys today. Bailey Curtis from the Hockey News is joining us here. We're going to get caught up on her summer, what the Avs have been up to, get her takes on everything. You're probably sick of hearing Megan and I talk about. Bailey's going to kick off our Avs media guest week, I guess is what we're calling it as of right this moment. As always, guys, do want to start off by reminding you guys about our new friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? Well, that is exactly what RefiJet is here for. And with RefiJet, you could save around $150 every month, all with just a soft credit pull and zero hassle. Lower payments, flexible terms, and even cash back from your car's equity. RefiJet does the work. You get the savings. Start today at refijet.com, the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey everybody, welcome in. Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley, and we are joined by Bailey Curtis of the Hockey News. We couldn't wait for school to start again. We had to start getting all of our friends in here. So Bailey, you are kicking off the week of our special Avs media guests in studio.
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Yes,
guys.
Of course. Thank you for parking some time. I know we're all kind of trying to milk these last couple of weeks of the off season and the free time. So appreciate you parking some time. How's the summer been?
Yeah, summer's been good. Slow.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys know nothing about that. Yeah, little vacations here and there, mostly work, not a lot of hockey to keep me busy. So yeah.
Well, good. Well, it's glad you made it through. It can be tough after a while. Like you said, what we're going to talk about, especially with the Avs choosing to just kind of like run it back. Mm-hmm. It was kind of that initial influx of news at the beginning of July, and then it's just been steadily nothing.
You know, it was interesting too, with it being like my first year as a credentialed member of media too. I see things from the outside and things are always so busy and you're always struggling to keep up with things. And then I get here and I'm like, what is this? What is going on? I don't know what to do with my hands because there's nothing to do.
Right.
You know,
no, for real.
So that's been kind of the experience here.
Like you said, you're sprinting for so long and then it's like, well, what do I do? Megan, we can't start an episode. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to share Bailey's hockey journey story with our audience. She's been on the beat all this last season, but people might not know, and they should know who Bailey Curtis is.
Well, like we were talking with Corey, who pointed out that we actually do have a pretty big beat here in Colorado. So I think that is where we just wanted to start. Bailey, yeah, you joined the Avs beat last year with the Hockey News. Give us your lore a little bit here. How'd you
fill in origin story?
Right. Yeah. Whichever way. Yeah. How did you get into hockey, I guess, in general? And then how did you find your way, as a credential writer for the Avs?
Yeah. So I originally am from North Carolina. Nobody knows. So I started getting into hockey when I was about 10 or 11, weirdly enough, from playing soccer as a kid. I was really interested when soccer started introducing goaltenders, of potentially trying out the position. I had gone up to my dad. I had gone up to my coach. I was like, I'm kind of interested in this. I don't know what it looks like, but what do you think? And my dad told me the origin story of Cam Ward with the Hurricanes, 2006, how he was a rookie coming in, stood on his head, helped lead the Hurricanes to a Stanley Cup. I went into goal after that. It was the last game of the season. I made one save on one shot. And that was kind of it for me. Yeah. My dad started taking me to games and I got really, really into it, to the point where my parents kind of had to get me back into school. Like you're focused on this a little too much. High school's still a thing. We need to, focus on this. And then, getting out here to Colorado, moved out here. Started kind of getting into the Avalanche a little bit, so mostly with the Canes though. And I started with a podcast, or I should say I guested on a podcast called the Surgecast. Zach Martin, who was the original host, or I guess original host that started it back then, brought me on as a guest. We clicked really well. I was brought on as the first co-host,
Nice.
and just started watching the game more and more, pulling out statistics. I loved kind of like gelling with certain players and watching, them fill different roles. And the game was just so fast paced. And compared to other sports that I had watched, I had never, like gelled with a sport that much. And in connections through Zach, I started covering the Eagles with a few different organizations. Belly Up Media is the first one that comes to mind. I spent a little bit of time with the Calder Times and just kind of doing stuff like that, round and about. And then I had a couple opportunities, just writing on the back burner, started getting more and more into the Avs. I wasn't watching the Canes as much, but I was still covering them there. Saw an opening with the Hockey News.
Yeah.
I came out or saw that their previous writer, Colleen, had left for a different media organization. I guess this is I know you and I talked a lot about just like getting our foot in the door and like asking questions and whatnot. And so I just sent a random DM to the Hockey News. It was like, hey, are you guys looking for a beat writer? I'm still in school as a student at MSU Denver, but I'm looking for some work. I really love covering hockey. I've got these pieces here. What do you think? And they were like, yeah, cool. We'd love to get something filled immediately.
Perfect.
Got in touch with Jared and Brendan, and the rest is history.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Now you're here.
Now I'm here.
How was it? I don't want to gloss over that you are still a student and juggling the load of coursework at the same time, because you're very present at everything Avs too. So just tell me a little bit about managing both of those things.
Yeah. So it's a little difficult. I'm mostly an online student. I'm planning on taking some in-person courses here in the next semester too. But I work best at night. And so generally after games is when I'll kind of get a lot of my, writing done for the Hockey News. And then I'll kind of gear over to schoolwork and get that done there. And
after games?
After games.
Damn,
I am a night owl.
Yeah,
I stayed up
no,
really
throw some
late.
respect
I
on
don't like early
Bailey.
mornings.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I like to sleep in and enjoy leisurely mornings.
Yep.
And so I get a lot of my work done in the afternoon. So like at practices, generally I'm either heading to a coffee shop or I'm heading home and just kind of doing that. So
I actually just saw a thing last week that talked about there's this new company who's helping people, and they're diagnosing your ideal sleep time.
Really?
And it was talking about how there are people that like I'm not going to pretend like I know what factors they were saying like goes into it, but like it is better for you to go to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up at this late. And
some people go to bed at like 5:30, and
Right.
I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't, but if that's
so there you go. Wow. All right. Now I will say, and people have probably heard me talk about this before, like there is a bit of an adrenaline rush for the way that you go to a game, and especially middle of January where it's another weeknight game, and you're kind of sitting there and depending on if the game's any good or not, you're kind of, but then suddenly we have to work very quickly. You've got to run around, you're in the room, and you're bouncing
running down the hallway.
Right. And who's available. All right, shoot, that guy's about to leave. I got to make, and then you got to run down, you got to get Jared. And then, I let me know if I'm wrong. So, we're lucky we don't have to work on deadlines, but like, the newspaper guys, they do deadline stuff. And so suddenly you get done and it's late and you've been tired all night, but you just, you did 2 hours worth of work in 30 minutes.
Right.
And so I do have a hard time falling asleep when I get home. My wife will give me a hard time. It'll be an 8 p.m. game. Yeah. She'll be in bed and I'll come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so tired. I'm gonna go turn on the TV. I'll be downstairs for a bit. Right. It's like I'm not just gonna lay here wide awake. So I guess
my boyfriend gets the same way because he has to get up at like 6:30, sometimes 5:30 in the morning for his job. Yeah. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not tired. I'm sitting on my computer, like on a chair next to the bed, or like I'm downstairs. And then he's always complaining, I never see you anymore. I don't know what that's all about. So I understand that.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
How was it? You've covered teams before, but
Mhm.
this fully boots on the ground, getting to know some of the team in the locker room. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was really strange just because with my experience covering the Eagles, like they're two completely different
Definitely.
ball games when it comes to media. You can request who you'd like versus, in the room with the Avalanche, like if somebody's available, like they can tell you no. I mean, one player certainly comes to mind with that, but no, like it really is a circus almost in how it works, and it was really
And we're the
overwhelming.
clowns.
And I remember it, like my first day, you seeing you and being able to kind of like have that immediate connection because I'd already known you kind of helped a little bit with my
Good.
nerves. And you were really encouraging that first day too. I
Okay,
remember like
good.
I walked in and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I kind of know how to ask questions. I know how to formulate that into articles and like get that coverage out there. But like this is different. Like these are actual like NHL guys who've been doing this for a while, and this is my first day and I don't know what to
Yeah.
do. And I remember you looking at me and you were like, you should ask at least one question and get out
Yeah.
there. And that really helped. I think the most intimidating part actually was the media.
Was it Logan O'Connor? Am I remembering that
Yes,
correctly?
it was
I do
Logan
remember
O'Connor.
that. You did great.
Thank you. But yeah, the most intimidating part really was the media. Like once I kind of figured out, I had
Yes.
no idea how it worked and how like specific beats work, because I had shadowed with Walt Ruff with the Hurricanes once, and I'd kind of seen how that media room works. But this was completely different in different ways. And so once I kind of got that groove down, and it just kind of clicked one
Good.
day, and that it became second nature, which was really nice.
That's
So,
good.
So it's so funny to look back on stuff now, because like I think about the first time I went into the Avs room, and I'd been interning stuff, helping the guys that covered the Avs, and so I was starting to feel more confident. I was comfortable on a mic and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And to your point, you walk into a room with a bunch of guys who are media trained, and they know how to answer questions, and they're very comfortable sitting there, and like you said, maybe even annoyed, like, and I remember feeling so confident even as the question came out of my mouth, feeling really confident, and I got a bad answer. Like I got kind of like a shut, like an answer that shut the question down a bit, and I just remember like kind of freezing, like, oh shit, like I feel very comfortable in conversations, and suddenly this guy is like, so getting that first one just out of, like, I remember feeling like it took me a few days before I asked a question again, but like I remember feeling like, okay, well, you did it. That's the worst that it can go, probably. You know what I mean?
That's the way that I'm trying to look at it too, is like I still kind of have trouble with the questions. I still get a little like shaky and nervous just because, again, these are high profile guys. They are media trained. They know exactly what they're getting into. I don't know what I'm potentially getting out of them on a day-to-day basis. And so those nerves are still there, and it's something that'll come eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure. But yeah, it's still it's a work in progress. Absolutely. I feel like you get better and better at it each day, and I'm sure I'm hoping this season is just kind of like the next building block.
Well, and,
I guess.
And you'll, and maybe you won't, I don't know, but you'll be surprised at like even that first year coming back. It's like from the moment you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, I've been here. This feels familiar. There's a look of recognition in the guys who were there from the year before, obviously. Like, there's gonna be new guys that none of us have met, but like you get that little bit of recognition. Okay, you recognize me from last year, whatever. And but no, I will always remember the first, it was Sven Andrighetto who I asked my first question to. And he felt my question was kind of silly, and like, okay.
I think I got fortunate with Logan O'Connor. It's just he's very intimidating, because when you ask him questions, he looks at you right in the
Very
eyes.
strong eye
It's just,
contact.
like big blue eyes just staring right back at you. So that was, but he did give a good answer. So I was really fortunate for that.
Yeah.
He's thoughtful. Yeah, I get it, Bailey. I still have nerves around asking questions.
Which
I
is
think
so hard to believe.
it's
too,
just
'cause you were a natural.
oh my
at
God.
this.
Thank you. Every year though, day by day, there's growth. And I think we're all our own worst critic. So we always see room for growth. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you did great. First season, kind of thrown into the gauntlet a little bit there too. So
Because
hopefully
you
you had
weren't-
fun.
You weren't there at camp,
No,
right?
I started, I think my first game was a back-to-back situation with Ottawa and Chicago sometime in October, November-ish, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I came in like on the back half of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was that's what was so, I think, interesting for me. I think it would have been better if I had started at camp, but just how
for
how
sure.
things
It's hard.
rolled
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you know, how things fell. Like that's
Yeah,
I'm fortunate to be able to start this season. I will say
for
that.
sure. Yeah.
No, that kind of translates to getting up and ready for this next season too. Starting out of camp, a player like Brock Nelson will finally get to have some roots planted here. They re-sign him over this offseason. I guess off the top, what are your initial thoughts on the summer the Avs have had so far?
Very similar to, I'm sure, the summers we all had. It's slow.
Yeah.
I don't think that's just on fault of the Avs, though. I think they've definitely been one of the slower teams this season too. But this free agency class, in my opinion, really wasn't much to work with. It was just kind of, again, meh. I think we're going to see a lot more exciting signings next summer, but this was just kind of like a coast sort of free agency for me. You get Brock Nelson under things, you get Sam Malinsky, which I think was the big necessary one for me on my radar, getting that figured out because I really liked his season last season. And then kind of getting the prospect pool a little bit more shaped up. But other than that, I mean, nothing to call home about in my book. The Brock Nelson signing, I did like seeing that, and that kind of, I remember watching one of your shows earlier this off season. Like that definitely answers questions that the Avs have had in the past. They are no longer kind of going into this season with, and we'll talk about, I guess, some more later that we're kind of focusing on. But no, I think for right now, there's still some things to be done, in my opinion, especially where the bottom six is concerned.
Yeah.
But as of moves particularly made, I haven't been super wowed and excited with anything that's happened.
Well, tell me more about what kind of work is left to be done, what you'd like to see.
Yeah, I definitely think that with the way that the top six looks, I think the Avs are kind of set.
Yeah.
Bottom six is definitely where a lot of work in my eyes kind of needs to be done. You've got a couple AHL guys kind of filling out that bottom area. But that bottom six, I think, is somewhere it's a little hard to work with what cap remains.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that's something they need to start taking a look at as we're kind of coming down into crunch time. That's my problem area, I suppose.
Yeah, it's for me something that you can look at the roster and I agree with you. Like Joe Sakic told us at the end of this, at that season-ending presser, like, I'd just run it back if I could. That's more or less what they've done. And honestly, I think they needed a summer like this. The last 2 years have been all about what's happening with Val. Are you keeping Val? Is Val coming back? Is he even be eligible? What's going on with Gabe? What's the situation there? And genuinely, I don't think any of us thought that it would end the way it did, but you had that little bit of the looming, like, well, what's going to happen with Mikko? I think a lot of us kind of wrote that off as like, well, they'll get it figured out. Come to find out, like, that was probably, that was something the front office, Chris McFarland, was probably working on, thinking about a lot. I think it was good for them to have a summer where it's like, yeah, we've got to get a couple third line guys, maybe get a 7th D.
Maybe not just to worry about as
right,
well.
Right.
Coming into it, but you got a year to worry about that.
See what happens there, But just being able to go through you're not thinking about what's going on with Alexander Georgiev. Was what we saw in game 1 against the Jets. Is that who he is? Or was it what happened, in games 2 through 4. Like I just felt like there were so many question marks the last number of seasons that for them to get an off season like this to the point where you're literally like,
it's almost a different kind of pressure
for sure,
in a way. Like, because I mean, being slow, there are, not only are you kind of asking yourself questions, okay, what are we going to do with Mikko Rantanen? What does this Alexander Georgiev situation look like? Now you're like, you've got all these outside questions coming at you instead. Like, okay, where's Eric Johnson? What's going to happen with Martin Necas? What's going to happen with that bottom six? How is that going to shape out? So it definitely is a different kind of pressure, I think.
I think the question mark around goaltending last year and starting without Arturi Lehkonen, the results were really disappointing and people kind of understood why, but there's this expectation that the results shouldn't be as disappointing. They'll be without Logan O'Connor, but they're otherwise running it back with a goaltending tandem that helped to improve their bottom line by the end of the year.
So now, I guess both of you guys, because I feel like I've seen a lot of sentiment of a lot of fans, national media people that are almost starting to take the Avs kind of out of that, high expectation. Now, I thought Elliot Friedman did their post free agency episode where they go through every team. And I thought what he said was, for a lot of people, he said, pick against the Avs at your own peril. Like, this is still a really good team with a very good core. And like, I almost wonder if this will be a season that, as opposed to last year where people are like, well, why aren't the results there? I almost wonder if there is going to be a little bit of like a relinquishment of pressure. Cause I just think that people who didn't follow that series and see how it played out, another first round exit for the Avs. I don't know. Do you guys think, I wonder if there's going to be toned down outside pressure on them and maybe able for them to just go play a little bit?
I think you could go back and forth with it. There is, I think, that looming pressure from the Dallas series because it obviously did not end the way that anybody wanted it to. I think their biggest kind of point of pressure this year is going to be that staying healthy factor. And because this is a team, once again, I feel like I feel like I sound like a broken record, but with that bottom six, once you potentially get those pieces all sorted out, this is a team that can contend. And it's a team that a lot of people have taken out of the equation due to, not being able to get past Dallas, falling against some maybe higher profile teams that they should be able to beat on any given night. Just with this inconsistency, things didn't work out. I think there is like that pressure still exists because there are humps for them that they need to get over that they felt like they should have been able to address last season. There's also, the power play. And getting certain little humps that maybe weren't an issue at the beginning of the season, last season, but things that maybe are different points of pressure rather than, are we a team that can do it? I don't think that's a question in anybody's mind. I just think, can they play the way that they need to play in order to perform the way that we all know that they can?
I think the pressure points are different one year to the next. Like, I would view the start of last season as having some question marks and also some explanations for poor results. Like, you have the struggling goaltending tandem and you're without Val Nichushkin and Arturi Lehkonen to start the year. But going into this next year, there's still the question mark of what does a full season of Gabriel Landeskog look like in actuality? Can the goaltending hold up consistently over 82 games? Signs point to yes, but that's going to be a big part in all of this. What does Necas look like in a contract year? I think some people were underwhelmed with his playoff results, but excited and intrigued by his regular season results. And so I think that the intrigue around the back end too, with how it's currently constructed, there's pressure there, but there's also pressure on a player like Brock Nelson, who you went into last season with a gamble on Casey Middlestat and you liked his early results in the playoffs. But obviously he struggled out the gate. Well, actually he didn't struggle out the gate. He had a great first 10 to 15 game segment, and then Casey Middlestat struggled. All that to say,
he was so good at the start of the year.
Brock Nelson is more of a sure thing. He's a more established player in what he is, so he's more of a known quantity, but he was not as impactful as you'd hope an experienced veteran player would be in the Dallas series. So the pressure points, I think, are different. They've opted, I think, with some things that should feel like a safer bet, like a Brock Nelson. And now what we've seen in Blackwood and Wedgwood, I feel more comfortable than I ever felt with Georgiev. After that first year in particular, it was such an up and down roller coaster, whereas with Blackwood and Wedgwood, it feels pretty consistent in terms of what you're going to get. So all that to say, the question marks around Gabe and what this back end actually looks like with the addition of Brent Burns, question marks there, but then some things that shouldn't be such question marks, but then that just means deliver results. And that's where I think there is pressure then for players like Brock Nelson.
I will say too, in going back to goaltending, this is probably the most sure that I've felt in a tandem since, joining the beat and moving to Colorado and watching this team consistently. They found a gem in Blackwood.
Will you put up that first comment from Hurricane there? I don't think. Nope. There you go. So this right here, funnily enough, is actually why I not only firmly believe that the Avs are contenders, but why I think this is such an interesting era in the NHL. You and I just spent the last 2 weeks doing our division previews. I don't think there has ever been, now I think it's among about 10 teams, but more parity among those teams where it's just like I don't see any one team right now where it's like maybe outside of Florida.
Yeah.
Where it's like that's the team. I don't know how many I see a bunch of very good flawed teams. Every team has that question mark for, with Vegas, what are they going to do on their back end? Does Aiden Hill hold up? For Edmonton, they don't have a goalie. Toronto has their issues. Dallas, the scoring dries up. Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck is an AHL backup come playoff times. Like every team that you run through, it's like that's a good team, but they've got this flaw. And I don't think the Avs are any different. They have clear and obvious holes they need to plug for me to be able to say, yes, that's a cup contender. But I agree with that point you made earlier, Bailey, of like, I think they're just as much a contender as any of these other teams. Like I said, Florida is probably the one exception you make to that right now, where they are clearly the team to beat. I think all of the contending teams have flaws that they all need to address between now and whatever, what is March 7th or whatever the deadline is to get there. And so it's actually because of the fact that when I look at the rest of the West teams in the East, with the exception of Florida, I don't see any teams that are, head and shoulders above where the Avs are at. Solid core, holes to plug.
And I think when hockey fans tend to look at around the league too, it's very hard to remember that Florida is an anomaly, should not be the standard. Like your team is not, it'd be nice if you're perfect, but no team is meant to have perfect, scoring up and down the lineup. You're not supposed to have a defensive unit that is impossible to get by. Like it's a game. It's 82 game season that's meant to be hard fought battles. And it's
a defensive unit that they added to that made it what it was right at the deadline. Right. Again, that was a team that had holes that needed to be plugged. And so I think that's what's really fun about where the NHL is at right now.
And given how much Florida has committed to running it back as much as possible, they'll be completely inflexible come the deadline, that if any needs do arise that need to be addressed, they won't really have the means to do it unless dismantling this very well-constructed team that we see before us. But to your point, they didn't have Seth Jones, ahead of the deadline. And that was a big difference maker on their back end going into the playoffs. And similarly, Bobrovsky has been steady, but we've seen different iterations of Bobrovsky too. There's a lot of luck involved with playoffs and trying to simulate what kinds of results we can expect from some of these top teams. And we can look to the early success of like Dallas in the playoffs and just how worn they are come a Western Conference final, that it's almost silly to count the Avs out, just given the many variables that go into a playoff run. And an Avs team that's pretty, the issues like you mentioned that we're dealing with right now going into next season, they're little tweaks. I still feel nervous about the third line, but I wanted to ask Bailey about Jack Drury and your belief in him as a player. Can he be a solution for a center on that third line?
Absolutely. I think
Confident in that.
No, absolutely. And having watched him for as long as I have, I wholly echo Chris McFarland, what he said. I think it was after the draft was we have high expectations for him that he can be our third line center. And I wholeheartedly think that Jack Drury can step up to that. Calder Cup champion. Is a really, really versatile player with a good amount of grit, who has had to step up in the past in situations that he's been in, whether that was with the Wolves, whether that was with the Hurricanes, whether that was in, Bednar moving around lines and potentially shifting him up a line during games. I think he's got not only do I have the confidence in him, I think he's kind of got that self-confidence as well, that he knows what he's capable of.
Yeah.
And put better players next to it, and put a better caliber wing duo in with him on a line. Sorry, good grief. But no, I really think if you can put better players around him that have the ability to score and can find him in certain situations, he's got a really sharp shot. If you can find players who can meet that and learn to gel with him, he's absolutely got what it takes to run that third line. I have no doubt in my mind.
I really want to believe this too. No, I really do. Because I was thinking about like some of his early success was actually some sort of connection between him and Netchess. And so seeing him work with a high skill player like that, I want that to work with a player like Ross Colton, who would be the high skill player on the third line that I think is still in search of the right offensive complement. And that was some of the struggle for Ross Colton this last season. And that's where I get a little bit nervous on taking a bit of a gamble with something like that, is I don't want Ross Colton's ceiling to be impacted if it doesn't work out. But I do have some belief in Jack Drury, and we were talking with Corey Massasak early this morning, and he described like a November center and a May center, and how there's basically players that can fill that role in the regular season, and come playoff time, it might be a different story. And I'm willing to explore regular season 3C Jack Drury.
I think you get a full season out of him and nobody's disappointed. I think that trade was a bit of a surprise for everybody. And so Jack's having to kind of run around and figure out, okay, what is my role here versus what it was in Carolina.
What was it in Carolina? Sorry to interrupt you.
He was kind of like that get deep, find the sharp shot, find the corners, battle it out kind of player.
Third, fourth line.
Third, fourth line role. Absolutely. No, I can't tell you a time that I saw him in the top six, though I could be misremembering that.
Right.
But he was mainly a bottom six player with the Hurricanes.
Because I hear you on him being able to do it, and I think he's only 20. I had to look up how old he was right now. He's 25, so he's still a young guy. Based on what we saw out of him, what was that? 3 months that we got of seeing him up close here. I think if you run him out there with some quality wingers for the third line, I think you can get by for the regular season. And again, maybe this is unfair, but I think about that 22 team, and I say for those real Stanley Cup teams, I think you want the bulk of your guys kind of shifted down. Hey, you could play as a third liner. You're an excellent fourth liner. You could maybe be a second line guy, Ross Colton. You're a really good third line wing. And I think that's just, like, in my head, that's how I picture it. And so that's why I haven't really thought about Jack Drury, because I loved that fourth line so much. Jack Drury, Logan O'Connor, Parker Kelly. I just thought their identities fit well. And it felt like that's the best fourth line in the league. And I feel like that's what you want. But if Jack at just 25, if he can take another step, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all that he could be that guy. And then suddenly you're saying we need a third line wing and a fourth line player. We'll take that all day. Those holes to plug, easy.
And I think it's the old Kiviranta.
Fourth line player.
There you go.
Fourth line player. There you go, Megan.
No, and I will say, from what I remember of Jack Drury's time in the Carolina system too, he's really, really used to playing with veteran guys guys who know what they're doing on the wing. He's not so much used to having younger guys who are still kind of trying to figure out their roles and trying to figure out who they are as a player and figure out exactly where their ceiling is at. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest struggles for Jack Drury in being here is that's really what the bottom six is. You've got Ross Colton, who's 28, sitting on that third line. LOC comes back into the fold, another younger guy. So you've got guys who've been in the league for a little bit, but he's used to playing. He spent a lot of time in Carolina before he was traded or signed with the New Jersey Devils with Stefan Nason, who he'd spent a lot of time with in Chicago and was able to build that chemistry with, and the way that they were stylistically just really, really gelled on that third and fourth line with Rod Brind'Amour. And so that's going to be, I think, Jack's biggest struggle in having a full year in Colorado is just kind of figuring out, okay, I've been in the league a couple years now. How can I build off of these other guys who have also only been in the league a couple years now and learn how to become the versatile player that maybe the Avalanche need me to be?
Yeah, I remember looking at the combined NHL playoff game experience of Drury, Kelly, and OC, and it was very minimal. But what's funny about them is how reliable they are as players, and even just how steady they were in these playoffs, despite maybe on paper not having a lot of experience. They play with a lot of responsibility that earns a lot of trust that the experienced players typically get.
And I guess maybe that is the biggest mental block for me with Jack Drury 3C is I don't want to break up that unit. Like if I'm Jared Bednar, like I think that's that's almost like a third line light. Like I don't even necessarily consider it like a fourth line. And that's my biggest thing with it is, how can you replicate a little bit better version of that for, play with Ross Colton? And it's not that I don't like Jack Drury. It's just, I really liked him next to Logan O'Connor and Parker Kelly.
No, I did too. But, I like Ross Colton's energy too. So I'd like to see the regular season results for longer because I think we got some regular season Jack Drury 3C. It's just they bring in Charlie Coyle and that was no longer necessary. So I'd like to see more of it before I make any conclusive decisions around him.
What do you think of the Coyle deal? I mean, you have to attach him to get the out from under the Miles Wood contract, but
I wasn't super pleased with Coyle with the Avalanche.
Oh, okay.
I think he, did as well as he can in a, short period of games. I really liked him in the locker room, thought he brought a great presence in the locker room. But I wasn't overly thrilled with what he provided on the ice. I think I don't know. I think they got more out of it with trading him than I did. I think they would have with keeping him. In clearing up that cap, I think that they have more that they can do with it not having him on the team than with personally.
Like re-signing Kivy.
Yeah.
Or
I can't
qualifying
get Liv out of my head
and extending Sam Malinsky, which you mentioned earlier, Bailey. Let's talk about this back end. Let's start with Brent Burns.
Yeah.
That's kind of a high profile addition to this team. What do we need to know about Brent Burns?
Label it as a major signing, Megan. Don't sell Brent Burns short.
I think so too. That's why I would call it high profile.
No, Brent Burns is, from what I have heard about his time in the Carolina locker room, was kind of the grandpa of the locker room. And I think that's exactly what he's going to come in and provide here in the Avs locker room. He's got a heck of a lot of experience up and down the ice, from playing forward when he entered the league into finding his way.
Who was it that asked him? I think it was Evan. How has your game changed since you came to the league? And he goes, well, I started as a forward, so it's changed a lot. And
when you look at his goal totals over the years, I mean, it's not hard to believe. Why does he have so many? It's because, spent a little bit of time not on the blue line. But, I love that I was able to ask him this question, talking about his time with Jacob Slavin and what he was able to kind of learn from him as a player. And I think him being in the older kind of the last few years of his career, he brings a lot of good veteran presence. He's bringing a lot of defensive knowledge from playing next to a guy like Jacob Slavin. I will never shut up about Jacob Slavin. You guys will I will.
This is a
go
safe
on that-
space. We love Jacob
No,
Slavin.
as a defensive player, I will never stop talking about that. But I think playing next to a guy like that, he brings in a lot of good experience that the Avs can kind of work off of. Had a bit of what my friend called a generational, I'm trying to phrase this correctly, generationally bad season on the power play. Was not very good, but his penalty kill,
Perfect.
surprisingly,
It's not like the
was-
Avs need any help.
right. No, we're fine there. But no, he provides some potentially good penalty kill minutes if the Avs need to slot him in there. You've got a growing guy in Sam Malinsky who's still trying to figure out his game, and obviously he's no 6'6" guy or 6'5" guy like Brent Burns, but still a lot to learn there. And I think that's the biggest thing is that Brent Burns is going to bring into this room is experience. You're getting a solid bottom 4 guy on the defense. I don't think you're looking at Brent Burns and saying this is going to change the trajectory of the Colorado Avalanche. They're going to be the best team in the world. I don't think that's what Brent Burns is, but he's going to be a great guy in the locker room.
I hope he does change
See,
the
I was
trajectory
going to
of
say,
the Avs.
if I'm being completely honest, I think the impact that Brent Burns is going to have on that back end is going to be, I think, more significant than we think right now because of the minutes he can eat.
Mhm.
He's an excellent penalty killer, like you just pointed out. And I think Jared Bednar plays every defenseman with everybody anyways.
Mhm.
But I actually I do think that Brent Burns is going to have a bigger impact on that defensive unit than maybe we think, and especially the way that he last year was definitely the first year where it was like, ooh, this guy's 40, but I mean, if you can give him 2 of Cale Makar's minutes every night, that's going to
Immediately takes the pressure off of
right.
Cale.
That's going to make a
Absolutely.
huge difference for Cale. If Cale can go out there on 1 less penalty kill a night because Brent Burns can eat those minutes,
Okay. Yeah.
that's going to be good for Cale, which is very good for the entire team. So I'm definitely with you. The expectations need to be this is a bottom couple pairing type guy. I do think I think his ability to eat minutes is going to be what has a really positive impact on that lineup.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see his utilization too, because I got the sense from reports around the Canes that he wanted to continue playing kind of in a top pair role, and maybe there was this view of a demotion in his future. And if so, are we looking at a second pair role in Colorado? Because that's not maybe so different, right? Because a top pair role wouldn't have existed for him here either. But maybe like Jesse is saying, when it's one rung down, but you have Stanley Cup final ambitions, you live with that. And that makes a lot more sense to me. I can't imagine him. I imagine, honestly, it being a huge blend of the pairs at the end of the night. And the minutes between second to third pair starting to blur more than we've seen before, just with this current lineup.
And that was the biggest thing when I was kind of looking at Brent Burns coming into the fold too, is I'm sitting here trying to piece these pairs together. And I'm like, my mind changes every other day with it. And I wholeheartedly agree with you there. I don't think we see something. I can imagine seeing a set lineup going into every single game, but I don't think it stays that way from minute 1 to minute 60.
He's also another great ozone start guy. That not the Avs are short on those,
Right?
But that's a guy who's, especially just the type of player he is, combined with coming from the Canes organization and system where it is put pucks to the net. That was a topic of conversation because we sit next to Bailey in the press box. That was a topic of conversation among us and Arif of like, it felt like this Avs team from last year passed up on a lot of lanes. Not to be the shoot it guy, but like there were several moments where it's like, yo, one of you has to shoot it.
Right.
And I think maybe adding a guy like Brent Burns back into the fold, who is going to have a little bit of that, just again, not only the type of player he is, coming from a system that stresses pucks to the net. I think that's
Avs could always use more of that.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And players like Sam Malinsky seeing the confidence just to rip pucks, I think makes it just a more complete back end, more of an offensive threat. I was curious too about your Marty Netchis take, because I think people were quick to maybe place some blame on his shoulders for not having more of an impact in the playoffs. And then maybe curious about his stylistic fit moving forward. I've been vocal that I'm not quick to write off Marty Netchis and his fit in Colorado. I'm curious your thoughts on him.
When it was first announced, and first off, I'll preface by saying this, when I first, started covering the Avalanche more heavily than I had ever before, I had prayed for a moment like this to happen between my two hometown teams. I was like, I finally know things. I have a weird, unique take here.
Perspective on it.
Yeah. So when Netchis finally came here, I loved watching him in Carolina. I always thought that he was a little underutilized in Rod Brendamore's system. And you saw that when Netchis came over to the Avalanches, their transition game declined heavily.
Carolina's, you're saying?
Carolina's, absolutely. Yeah. They were finding it hard to transition pucks. You've got Netchis, who really likes to utilize his agility in the ozone, and they struggled with that immensely, and being able to find those dirty areas and potentially finding open space with pucks. That Netchis has this really big kind of, he can do that confidently. And I think when the trade was first dropped and announced, of course, you don't want to see a foundational guy like Mikko go, but I was so excited to see him next to a guy like Nathan MacKinnon. And you've got a fast guy in the middle, you've got a fast guy on the wing, you've got two right-handed players. And that was one of the things Netchis had complained about reportedly in Carolina too, is he didn't like that there weren't as many righties for him to kind of pair with and gel with. And he really liked that in coming to Colorado. And so personally, I really loved seeing them on a line together. I think getting a full year, hopefully, of Marty Netchis, I'd like to not see him go at the trade deadline personally, just because I would love to see what a full year of Nathan MacKinnon and Marty Netchis can do with their speed, with the way that they kind of match stylistically. I think they're able to kind of communicate and switch well. I mean, you guys saw when Netchis first got in, he kind of fell into that MacKinnon circle very, very quickly. And so being able to see how they're kind of deployed and utilized together, I definitely think there's a lot to learn pressure-wise. Another potential pressure point. There's a lot for Marty to kind of live up to this upcoming season, especially with those playoff numbers. And I would almost like to see a more consistent season of him this upcoming season, but it's not to shirk away from the fact that he had an incredible season.
Yeah, career
last season as well.
I mean, fairly or unfairly by Avs fans, he's going to be compared to Mikko Rantanen forever, for as long as he's here.
Well, they're both spotty in the playoffs sometimes.
So, but that's I do think that I'm with you. I'm really curious to see what, full season, full camp. He spent the whole summer knowing what the Avs wanted him to work on, understanding where he fell short, where he excelled. But that is, like I said, fairly or unfairly for Marty Netchis, he's got to keep up with Mikko Rantanen production wise. All right, let me real quick on Mikko. I talked to somebody recently who said that a lot of what came out about his brief stay in Carolina was pretty accurate. That he didn't really want to be there, and that the relationship just soured kind of quickly. Do you have anybody back there that you talked to or heard anything from that about that? They came out all right. Stankoven's a good player. They got loaded up with picks. It was fine, but that definitely was not what the Hurricanes were planning when they pulled that trigger.
No. And just kind of looking at different, media takes in that beat, it seemed like Mikko figured out pretty quickly that this is not where he wanted to stay. And you kind of talked about a little earlier in the show about how, they were kind of busy with that for a while and orchestrating that. Came out from Eric Tulsky that they had inquired about it that summer. And potentially talking with Mikko's camp. And so in the back of my mind, I almost had to think he had to know it was a possibility.
Something, right?
Right. I don't know how you go into that and I'm completely shocked by this, but you could see it in the whatever it was, 16 games that he played with Carolina, that he did not want to be there.
No.
He had a friend in Sebastian Aho, and even Sebastian, when I talked to him briefly before the All-Star break, was like, yeah, no, he's a great player, great friend, enjoy being able to play with him, even if whether it's on the Hurricanes or with Finland. But from what I've heard, the locker room just really wasn't enthralled about it. Now, on the other side of that, when reportedly management went to talk to some of those higher profile players like Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and then they were really happy that they took the chance on getting a guy like Mikko Rantanen, because I mean, obviously you guys know he was the biggest name of free agency. Who wouldn't want Mikko Rantanen on their team?
Well, and he was the type of player they were missing.
Right.
That give him the puck and he can go score a goal.
You've got a top 10 player. Right there. And to have that kind of fall apart, I do think Carolina came out better for it. They got 2 first-round picks out of it. They got a Logan Stankoven, who they just locked down for a couple of years. And so I don't think they're mad about it, especially just because of the way Mikko, it looked like he went into there and he automatically looked on the ice like, I don't want to be here. And that's how he played. And I think it kind of brought the team down. Rod Brindamore reportedly knew it. Management knew it. And I think they made, diamonds out of dust or whatever, however the saying goes. So, yeah.
I just didn't know if you would, if there was anyone that you would talk to that had said like, no, it was brutal, whatever. Because I just, man, it would have been better for the Avs had he stayed out there.
Absolutely. I will say, I mean, Jack Roslovic's one Rolex richer.
Yeah,
out of all
no
that.
kidding. No
Great
kidding.
transition.
Yeah,
Let's talk about Roslovic. A couple names still out there and into free agency, and that is one name I've seen the Avs fan base, I won't say is linked to the Avs through any sort of report, but rather the fan base sees a versatile centerman who can play wing, and they're intrigued about his fit. What do you think?
I think he's in Carolina, he kind of gave off the vibe of a shoot first, kind of ask questions later kind of guy, which, as we were talking about earlier, the Avs could definitely potentially use a guy like that, especially on that bottom 6. But when you see him pass the puck, oh boy, do beautiful things happen. And kind of going back and watching his tape, he is a guy who likes to get into open areas, which I really enjoy how he kind of utilizes the space. But he's also he's a guy that knows how to navigate those kind of areas in front of the net as well, which I think is something the Avalanche could also potentially use down their entire roster. And so in getting Roslovic, he got a bit of a pay cut last season from the deal that he signed with Columbus in 2022 to signing in Carolina last season. I do think he's earned a bit of a pay grade, which is the one thing that I may be a little, I don't know how the Avalanche could potentially swing that. I would love to see them try, because, having that potential connection with the time that Jack Drury spent there, potentially getting that bottom 6 connection back, I would personally really love to see Roslovic on the team. No bias.
No bias. He's a complicated one for me because he's obviously a high motor, great work ethic player to have played under both Torts and Brindamore and be very well regarded by both. I think that would fit in culturally extremely well in Colorado. But I'm nervous about what I've seen of him defensively. And I think for a bottom 6 player, that two-way game is so important. And obviously, under Brindamore, it's such a defensive structure that it's hard to really take what's the word for it? To not have that be an important part of the game. But I think sometimes positionally, I've seen him out of place in his defensive reads, and I'm worried about how that would translate. And I'm also worried, if Ross Colton is the trigger man on that third line, he probably needs more of a distributor. And if you're right, though, if he just needs to build his confidence to do that more, it could be complementary. But I'm nervous to have 2 shooters when I think what Ross Colton really needs is a playmaker.
Absolutely. And I will say, in Roslovic's game, he tends to be very streaky in his play. So while I would classify him as a shoot first now kind of player, that is something he does need to build up, is that consistency key factor. Again, in building that confidence when passing the puck, I do think that could benefit his game beautifully.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we saw him take the drop off that he did, because you've got this pressure from Rod Brendamore's system to perform defensively.
Yeah.
And he's maybe not taking as many chances to rush up the ice and take the shots that you might have seen him take in the beginning of the season. And so I wholeheartedly agree.
But
there.
I love the fit if the money makes sense. I see the
Mhm.
projections for the type of money he could command being like just under the 5 mil mark. And that obviously that won't work for the Avs in my eyes.
No.
But if there were some way that he saw opportunity in Colorado that he really liked and it was a friendly deal, I'm not saying no to Jack Roslovic by any means.
Well, and I think the money side of it, like you said, probably due for a raise. If you're the Avs and you're trying to make some, whether it's Roslovic or something like that work, that's where you do try to lever, like, hey man, it's August 20th.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have much, of a bargaining chip here, and try to talk, him or a player like that into the Jonathan Drouin. Show me, 1 year at, whatever, 2 or whatever they can make work.
Right.
And then, hey, if that goes well, we'll get you on a new deal halfway through the season,
Mhm.
and we'll run it back. Why do you think he's still out there?
I think it's because of that streaky nature. You saw him kind of blow up in the beginning of the season with the Hurricanes. I think he totaled somewhere around 6 goals, 9 goals in the span of the year before last. And he pretty much met that in the first 10 games with Carolina. And you're looking at this like, why was he this cheap? Like, how did we get this for that? And then you get halfway through the season, you're like,
goal total hasn't moved much.
That's why. And so that's why I think maybe he's still out there. But there's also the question to be asked, with this being such a slow free agency period, what conversations has he had that make him kind of hesitant to settle down anywhere? Well,
and I do, and I'm not trying to, sorry, Yoel Kiviranta, like, well, hold on. I'm going somewhere better than you think I'm going.
I'm ready.
But like, career year last year, really popped. 16 goals, played really well after I thought a season before where he really struggled with the Avs. Really good bounce back year, and I wonder if a player like Kiviranta, Jack Roslovic, them in there, I almost say if they went into the market with like, that's who my player is, and I just wonder if there was pushback on like, we're just not going to buy based on, Jack Roslovic breaking out for a bunch of goals in this, small window. Yoel Kiviranta hitting this, way outlier of a season. We're willing to pay you for who we think the player is, and again, you see it every year, a player who thinks he's really going to capitalize on a career year that they just had, and the market just doesn't materialize. And then suddenly you're kind of stuck out there with this asking price that is just beyond what teams are willing to do. And then suddenly teams go spend their money, and it's like, oh, well, shoot, I don't know if anybody has even the money that, was being offered to a guy like Jack Roslovic. And again, like Yoel Kiviranta, I thought for sure he would get a July 1, 2 or 3 year, Anaheim gave Mikael Granlund $7 million.
Yeah.
I thought a team like that, San Jose, would give Yoel Kiviranta $1.5-2 million. And just when that market didn't materialize, suddenly he's sitting there in August. I wonder if it's a similar thing with Jack, where they maybe swung a little bit too hard, him and his agent.
Absolutely. No,
I wonder too if it's interest in working things out with Canes and trying to figure out the fit, and that being maybe some of the holdup so far. I get the sense that maybe the need for him specifically has been hard, but he's obviously well liked for his work ethic.
Well, I will say though too, if you look at playoffs with Roslovic, he was a healthy scratch for a good portion of those playoffs with the Hurricanes, switching out for guys like Jankowski and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who I have my own thoughts about, and just kind of going back and forth there. And so he wasn't really a consistent part of that roster in their, I think, almost Cinderella run in a way last season. So
Kotkaniemi has been it's been so disappointing.
I think the 13 minutes a night half point per game player for Roslovic is so different from the Kivy conversation. And obviously the money that these players are looking at is also very different.
Yeah.
But that is maybe what is tough is I see the value of getting more consistent production over the span of 82 games. But obviously in playoff moments, that matters more.
And for the record, I'm going to have to do something this year. I can't even say Kivy. Everyone starts.
We need to get like a counter going.
Everyone's waiting for the hate. But no. And like I said, those are, to me, are just the two players that are the example from this summer. It was Evan Rodriguez a couple years ago trying to capitalize on a big career year in Pittsburgh, and the market just wasn't there for what they're asking. And like I said, so it's, you know, the Avs picked up, you know, were able to bring Yoel Kiviranta back. They probably didn't think like that. I would be willing to bet that when they were putting together their free agent plans and they said, okay, we're not going to re-sign him, they probably said, yep, he's going to get picked up somewhere, so we don't have him. It wasn't till he was sitting out there a month later that they said, well, shoot, should we circle back on this? Yeah. And again, it happens to a couple players every summer. I think Kiviranta and Roslovic are the two, biggest names that are still kind of floating around out there.
Absolutely.
Isn't it funny too? Because there have been free agency classes that have had Tomas Tatar, to include this one, and Evan Rodriguez, and that is kind of a perfect encapsulation of how tough of a free agent class it's been this summer. That those are the kind of high profile names we're still talking about.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and this was just a year in which like more teams re-signed their own guys. Oh my God, Bailey just sent me a text.
Perfect.
What if you? Oh my God!
A Kivy hoodie. Don't you dare! I know you will. I know you will, because then I'll have to wear it on a pod.
You have to wear it in the locker room.
Yeah.
Hey, Kivy, can I grab you for a few minutes?
Yeah.
For a picture, an autograph.
And you already know there's one other person and I'm keeping this when there's one other person that I'm going to try to rattle with something in an interview. I showed it to you a couple of weeks ago.
See, now I feel left out.
I'll show you.
Okay.
So I don't want to say too much. So I'm really excited that if we can pull it off. That company that reached out to us, the hoodies and all that stuff. All right, we'll talk after.
Awkward silence. I can see the gears turning.
I know. I just imagining like an aluminum can with those worms that jump out, and Jesse's gonna go up to someone and just like open a can.
No.
And prank him. I don't know why we're pranking the Avs this season as a legitimate thing, but he's like, oh yeah, there's this other prank that we have planned.
And you're gonna feel silly when I show
Hoodies
this to you
for everybody,
because you were the first one that was like, oh my gosh, you have to do something with that. But what I was going to say was this was just a really interesting free agent market in so many.
Oh, I actually think this Hurricane Teabag comment made me think of what it's going to be.
Yeah. That's, yeah. This.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. It's not a prank, you guys.
Yeah.
It's not a can of worms.
No. But just more teams re-signing their own guys than it felt like it seemed like the narrative leading up to it was like, this is the first year teams have money to spend since COVID. Players are going to go cash in. Everyone's going to hit the open market and teams are just going to go crazy. And I actually felt like more than any other year, it was the opposite. Like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to go chase the money.
It's almost like that comment Sakic made afterwards. It wasn't just kind of Avalanche applied. I feel like a lot of teams went into it with that kind of mindset too. And that's just kind of how the cookie crumbled. Yeah,
for sure. Right at about an hour. So we're going to wind it down. Do you got anything else?
No.
Bailey, anything else? Any final thoughts for our
Kotkaniemi?
Yeah.
Fourth wing night.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Avs announced fourth wing night.
Yeah.
And we have a literal expert on the panel.
So this is how we're gonna wind today's show down. What are they doing? What is happening?
Yeah. So Rebecca Yaros is a local author. She lives.
Okay, this already makes more sense.
Yes, she is a local author. She lives in Colorado. Big hockey nerd. She loves the Colorado Avalanche.
Okay.
Gabe Landeskog is her favorite player. And so I guess conversations happened and materialized over this past couple months. Hey, we saw that you did this Fourth Wing night with the Boston Red Sox, I think it was.
What is Fourth Wing?
Fourth Wing is a book. It is a fantasy book that is based in a military college, kind of a romancy type setting as well. Based in a military college for dragon riders, and it's that's
this is
really
getting crazier with every
all
sentence.
I can
that
say.
you move
It has
further.
nothing to do with hockey, which is I think why so many people are up in arms. It really has nothing to do with hockey, except for the fact that the author who wrote it is a huge hockey
Big
fan.
hockey fan.
Again, local author, and I think that's where the Avs kind of saw the opportunity. Like, hey, you're a big Avs fan. We love your work. Let's do something here. And we know this could be a potential big marketing thing, I think, to get a lot of eyes that are not normally in the hockey scene into a rink to watch some hockey. And so they didn't push it too widely on their socials, but I follow her pretty closely on Instagram and saw that was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, my two worlds kind of colliding.
Yeah.
She's my favorite author. I love a lot of her backlist. She's got a couple really good books that are maybe a little more mild and heartbreaking and wonderful. So it's not just Fourth Wing and Dragons,
mild,
guys.
heartbreaking, and wonderful. God damn.
Maybe not three words you would ever hear in a sentence together, but I really I am personally like super excited about this. Solely for the idea of growing the game and what this brings into the arena. People who are like, I've never watched hockey before. Why is this associated? Let's go watch a hockey game, and might find that it's like the best thing ever. So yeah, that's the short kind of it all.
When is it?
November 13th, I think, is when it's all happening. So ticket packages, I think they had 300 VIP and I don't know how many standard, all sold out within an hour, if not less than.
Damn.
So yeah, you get a specialty jersey with it, with the male main character's name on the back, and a 4 for Fourth Wing, military term. I can kind of get more into that later off screen. But yeah, so you've got the 4 on the back with the specialty jersey, and then you have a special maroon burgundy Avs edition of the book, which there are a million different editions of. So any book collectors of this specific book will be thrilled.
Oh, so it's completely unique to this.
Well, so yeah, this edition that she's putting out is very, very unique to the Avalanche.
That's really cool.
Yeah, normally the kind of color scheme for it's kind of like orangish yellow, and this is like very specific, like Avalanche theme.
Yeah, that kind of burgundy color.
So, yeah,
I didn't realize wasn't the normal color for
that's
it.
Cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, but that's the short of it all.
All right.
So,
well. You're going to be our resident expert on that night.
On Fourth Wing night.
On Fourth Wing night. Because
I'm personally, as a book nerd, and I'm personally just very excited for it and to kind of see what the Avalanche do with it all. So
not just you. I told Bailey before the show, my friend was trying to get tickets and the site is broken.
Yeah.
Because there's too much demand.
They broke the site. I was sitting on there. I'm not going to lie to you, for an entire hour, and I got stuck on a certain thing, and it just gave me like a bad gateway thing over and over. And then they updated it to say this promotion is more popular than we thought. Please try again later.
Dang, that's funny.
So yeah, that's
Well, nice. Well, Bailey, thank you so much for parking an hour, coming down here and hanging out with us. We're getting going here in just a few weeks, but like I said, we just couldn't wait to start talking with everyone. So thanks for coming down.
I appreciate it, guys. I love what you guys do over here, so I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Thanks so much. Bailey Curtis, make sure you're following her work on Twitter, on Instagram, the Hockey News. Bailey Curtis, our seatmate in the press box. That's going to do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Corey Massasak from the Denver Post will be joining us. And then we have another special guest later in the week. We got some fun content coming your guys' way this weekend as, you blink and it's here. We got about 2.5 weeks to go till camp opens. So it's all ramping up, folks. She's Megan. She's Bailey. We got Chloe behind the glass today. I'm Jesse Montano. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.